Okay, in this video, what we're going to show is we're going to show a C phrase being used in this case of natural language driven data exchange. And we're going to show how the solution we provide here is faster, simpler, and cheaper. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what the problem is. So this is kind of a recurring problem that many organizations are having. They have a data, or they have access, or they have a database that's complex, maybe pay per query. So it might be like a Snowflake or something like that. And it's just gigantic. So it's like a peta or terabytes over many different tables. So it's big, complex, and potentially expensive per query. But what the user wants is they want interactive performance. So they want to be able to explore this thing interactively. And they also want to section out a subset of the database that they're going to maybe use for training or something else, or they want to just like get a little portion of the full database, and they want to kind of work with that and kind of interactively build that up and kind of determine what that is. And they want to do it for cheap. So they don't want to, if they're asking lots and lots of questions over the giant database, that could get very expensive. So they want low infra costs. So the solution is, well, you have the GigantoDB, and what you do is you wind up just doing an exchange, a data exchange from the gigantic database into a small instance. So a small instance on, say, EC2, so that's AWS instance. That can be run very cheaply. Okay, so that your cost for doing that is very, very low to maintain this. So the way this is done is what you do is you can use natural language to specify the download from the giant database. And once you've done that, then you have the small database here, and then you can do interactive refinement and annotation of the database subset. So you can actually work with this small database, and you're only working over the EC2 small database, and you're getting good interactive performance. There's very little network traffic when it accesses the database. And then finally, after you've done all this work, what you can do is you can just do like maybe a common separated value export of the final products for other tools to use. So this is kind of this is the idea behind the approach. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you kind of in an informal way me just doing this over a simple example using C phrase. Okay, so what I'm showing here now is this is just a fresh launch of C phrase. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to this TechCrunch, or I'm going to this Crunchbase database download. So I'm not sure if people are familiar, but Crunchbase gave actually a big data dump in 2013. And this is it. So here's the big data dump. It's not an extremely large database. We've worked with larger ones, but it's kind of, it's open and it's reasonably large. So let's just take a look here. So we're going to launch it and just kind of see. All right, so we've connected. So this is the Giganto database, even though it's not that big in this example. We run a C phrase interface here, and then we go in, and what we can do is we can look here, and we can just say, look, how many companies are in there. So now it's taking a little while, so because it's drawing off of the Gigant database, but there's almost 200,000 companies in that database. And what we're going to see here is what we're going to do is we're going to like section out just the companies that are involved. Like with web here. So we're going to try this, just say company web. And of course, this is kind of going to show you that, okay, well, it doesn't, remember, I mean, all we did here is we just downloaded the database. We haven't done any configuration. So what we want to do here is we're going to go in and just at least have it so that what we can do here, we look at like the category code here, we think it's the category code. What we would like to be able to do is just kind of like, well, we'll see here with the category code. What we want to do is we want to actually go in here. Is it category code? Let's see. Yeah, category code's there. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to use values there. And so the way that works in C phrase is you have to materialize them. So what this is doing then is, again, going to the giant database here. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring in all the category codes so we can use them directly in our questions. Okay, so this shouldn't take too long. So there we are. So now, so in this case here, if we just ask for the companies that are web, okay, it'll give us the ones with the category code web there. Okay, so that's just kind of part of the config. That's like the initial configuration you're going to be doing to get a CPhrase interface. So let's look here. Let's just see what all the category codes are. So that's the category code of the companies. And then there they all are. So we can move them over here to the right here, and then we can see them all there. So what we want maybe is we want maybe the companies, and of course, well, the company or companies, where the category code is, and then well, we actually don't even need to say category. We can just kind of put, we can select them. So we want analytics, software, and enterprise. Yeah, enterprise. So these are kind of the companies we're interested in. So when we ask this question here, we get, there we go, we get all of them. So there's about 23,000 of them there. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to build up this thing called a corpus. And this corpus you'll see is what we're going to use to pull the data down from the large database into our local database. So let's just do this right here. We'll create the corpus and we'll call it tech pull. Yeah, tech pull. And so when we look at the actual corpus there, then what we can do is we can add a question, and we'll just paste in the question that we just had there from before. So the companies that are analytics, software, or enterprise type. Now, what we want is we want just like a little portion of like the investment records. So the companies, let's see what we want. We want the investors that invested in companies. Okay, so this is kind of like the many-to-many relationship. And then we want that for those types of companies. So if we do this, then again, this is going to the giant database. So it took a little while there. So then we have those. So there's 15,000 of those records, and we're going to just put that also into this pull corpus. Okay, so we'll just paste this in, and then what we'll do is then if we want to complete it, so we actually want the actual investors who invested in companies of type analytics, software, enterprise. So here come the investors, and that should, again, notice these performances. Okay, so that's about 3,200 or something of those. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll finally put that into the pull corpus. Okay. So these are the questions then that are going to be driving the exchange of the data from the big database down to the local database. Okay, so right here is the button that will do that. So it's that down button. So this is going to actually use Corpus to download the data into these .db XML files. Okay, so now it's going out there and it's running a job that it's going to go and it's going to access and pull this information down from the large database. So one key thing to say here is what it does is it puts it on disk in like, I think it defaults to 50,000 tuple or record chunks. And the important thing to say here is that this is a small instance on AWS. So we've done this over terabyte-sized databases, and we've gotten up to thousands and thousands of db XML files. So this is this doesn't consume much memory. It can consume, of course, a lot of disk space. But it's written so that it scales to just a small AWS instance. All right, so it looks as if here's an example of one of the files. It just puts into an XML type format. And so there we have it. Okay, so now, then if we look at it right here, we have a lot of, okay, we have logs, of course, of all these actions and everything. So what we want to do now is we want to actually go in and specify a target database. It's a local target database. That's the database right there. That's the remote database. And here's the target database. By the way, I'll leave that those credentials can work. So if you want to experiment with this on your own CPhrase instance, go ahead and use those credentials. Okay. So now what we do is we've specified a target. Now, what we have here as an option is to upsert all the DB XML into the target. So all these things are going to go into this local target database. Okay, so now that's starting. And so now we're going to actually, so now right here you can see the progress. So it's taking that first file, and then it should go to the second file in a short moment here. Yeah, so now it's going to take 5 files. This should not take long to complete. And of course the demo here, I know it's a little bit long video, but we're doing all this in real time. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the kind of the performance characteristics, so there's no kind of speeding up or anything. Okay, so now, so the job is finished, and if we now look, let's just go in and do a little surgery here and get rid of the reference to the, okay, so we have all these kind of these files that got built, so let's just clear those. So that's just going to clear those temp files. Okay, because everything is now inside this TechCrunch DB, so that's where all the data is residing. So now we can actually go in here as well, and we can get rid of we can basically make it so that the target now is actually the database. So we're going to copy that, and then we're going to just paste it on top of that. So we're not referencing Giganto database anymore. We're referencing this database that we just built dynamically, and we'll just get rid of the target because there's no target. So yeah, so there's our database now. So now we're fully detached from the gigantic database. Okay, so now we're doing everything on our own here. So let's see, let's play around with this a little bit. Let's see what we can do here. So one thing we want to be able to do is we want to go in here to the parameters. We want to make it so that we can update tuples. The Crunchbase database, of course, you can't do that. I mean, it's turned off. It's a read-only account that accesses through. So, but anyways, with this, we want to be able to write to the database. Because we want to modify it, we want to change, we want to work with it. Okay, so now let's relaunch this thing here, and let's just see what we got here. So now this is the new data. This is new local database it's working over. So we're completely independent. And let's see. So those are the questions. The pull corpus. Those came up. But let's just see here. So what we have here is, like, if we look at the companies. There we are. So now we have the 23,000 companies, and they should all be of the type analytics, software, and enterprise. And these are a bunch of, yeah. So it just shows that the data all come over. But there's a lot of data in here we don't really want to have around. We want to get rid of. Let's see here. Okay, so if we look at the countries, these are all the countries' codes of the data. Well, not all of them, because there was a limit here on how many it took in. So you can increase that limit so you can see all. There's not that many country codes. But so like if we look right here, it's giving us, there's like 16 that didn't make it because we've defaulted 100 to be the maximum size of the list. That's easy to change. All right, so now companies. All right. Now, of course, this right here, the spell checker will get this, but our philosophy is to not have too much automatic stuff going on. So we want the administrators to specify most stuff explicitly. There's kind of a principle behind C-phrase. C-phrase is meant to be an open box, a very clear box about how everything operates. It's not meant to be a black box. All right, let's see here though. What are we going to do next? All right, companies. Okay, now you're going to show a little bit of how this works for like the configuration. So we know that we have country code, and then if I quote it, we can actually get it. So I can get the USA companies here with that quote. It's a little bit annoying because you have to actually go through and make the quote. If you materialize it, you don't have to quote it. Okay, so let's see. So what are we going to do here? So these are the companies where the country code is not the USA. All right, so these are, yeah, either they're null or they're other, and there's about 13,000 of those. So now what we're going to do is we're going to delete those. Okay, because we want to focus on American companies. Okay, now delete, that's not recognized, so what do we have to do? What we have to do is we have to go in and explicitly give this the ability for us to make writes to the company table. Okay? And let's see what else we have here. Okay. So now, if we go back here now, and we want to delete the non-American companies from this small database, okay, sure, it's up, so let's just do it. And then now we have to, of course, type in the exact amount here, just to 13,084. Confirm that, and they will be deleted. So, yeah, so then those are gone now. So now if we look at the actual companies, all right, we click there. This kind of like, we don't have to type as much if you click around. Then you see that there's only 10,000. They're all American, so they should all be USA companies. Right. So how many companies per category code? So this is just kind of like a quick query just to kind of see. Okay, so they're mostly software companies, but then we have some enterprise and analytics there. So now we can kind of explore around a little bit. So notice how if we were doing that over the gigantic database, we would have to, first of all, we'd have to have all these conditions about, the context. We're setting the context by building up the database state, this local database state. So we don't have to specify those anymore. So it kind of makes it a lot more efficient to kind of directly to get to things. If we were working over the gigantic database, this would be really pretty hopeless to do all this. It would be very, very tough. Okay, so companies analytics. All right, so because we if you recall from before, we materialized the type or the category code. So we can just do that. Now let's look at this right here. Let's just look at the whole thing. So we have a lot of tables in here. So let's just kind of look at it in the flat kind of XML. We have companies acquired by. We don't have it. We're not going to use that anymore. These are just kind of like remnants of the big giant schema. We could have gotten rid of them earlier, but these are remnants of the more complicated schema of the gigantic database. So invested in company. We also have we have to keep in mind here that there's invested in company, and then there's a notion of a funding round which we didn't grab. So let's just get rid of that as a foreign key. And then just to get rid of the rest. Oops, my mistake there. So let's just okay. So we have the three tables we want to focus on. There they are. Now anything past this and down to the back. Okay, we want to just get rid of. There we are. And now if we can let's just kind of take a look here. There might be some other stuff we want to get rid of. So let's go back to the tree editor here. So if we look at the company here, there's going to be some, like there's this thing about logos. We don't really need that. We can get rid of that. We can shave that off. It's always kind of nice to kind of shave things off if you don't need them. Also here, we want to turn these into memo types. So in CPhrase, a memo is just like a long string. So it kind of, has like a lot of documentation in it. We'll just change those types. So basically with CPhrase, you can do like schema evolution. You can do very, arbitrary schema evolution just by working with these XML files. But here we're just kind of like, getting rid of, we're changing some types here and we're getting rid of attributes we don't need or columns we don't need. So anyways, all right. So now we're going to, let's see, state code, region code. We got rid of country there because these are all implicitly U.S. companies. The issue of like when the records got created, we're going to get rid of that as well. So that we can just kind of like simplify. Simplify. Okay. All right. So that's good. And then we have investors, and we have the records of the investor investing in companies. Okay, so now let's relaunch it. Let's just see what we got here. All right. So it doesn't take long for it to come up. Yeah, there we are. So it comes up pretty quickly. And now let's see. Okay, companies analytic. So now we're actually looking. We're looking at fewer. Now there are fewer columns because we got rid of those columns. So that kind of simplified things a bit. And then let's see other things to show. Oh yeah. So you can go in and you can edit this because we turned on editing of tuples, which is pretty nice. Right. So let's just look at a good company to edit. Let's just think of this thing here. Okay, so if we look here, let's try to maybe do something more interesting here. So companies, and then we want of type software, companies of type software, and then maybe, let's see here, we want, all right, so we want to do something with these dates here. So founded, company software, founded at, okay, so founded before 1980. Okay, companies, category software founded before 1980. Oh, look, we have Microsoft here. And then in Microsoft, I'll edit this tuple here, maybe. So there's some description right there. And let's say that I'm doing something where I'm, I want to like make my own annotations here. So I'll just put one in here, and I'll just say MJM noted. Okay, so now we have MJM noted as an annotation. And now I could go and annotate a lot of different companies with that kind of signature, or that kind of value. So companies where the description contains MJM noted. There are none. And the reason is that because I'm getting this wrong, it's not the description, it's the overview that's relevant. Let's just see how long it takes me to figure this out here. Of course, I'm recording the audio after I've done that, so I kind of know what I did here. Yeah, see, I saw now it's under overview. Okay, so now, so I think a key thing here is that what you can do here, okay, so it's MJM noted. What you can do inside of the interface here is, instead of retyping everything, you can just hit up arrow. Okay, you hit up, and then you can edit that. So it really saves a lot of typing. I mean, again, I think the whole C-Phrase interface is kind of meant to save typing with this kind of clicking. So I've just, customers and everything, we've kind of determined this is kind of a good way to go. Okay, so now it looks like MJM at least there's a company, MJM Innovations, to match that. But okay, MJM noted is just Microsoft, because I just put that in, and it's very unlikely that other companies would have that in their overview. Okay, so the tables here, by the way, let's just look at the table. The actual tables are refreshed here. So we only have 3 tables here. So now because we whittled that down earlier in the configuration. Okay. So it just shows how we're working now with this this database. Now, if you recall, we had. We should actually have some of these records that are left over, because we got rid of all of the non-American companies. So we have the idea here of like, okay, these are the invested in companies where the company is not. It's like dangling. It's like a missing reference. So we have like these, like if you think about it, we have like all these tuples that were missed, that are missing. They should be missing. Okay, so we wanted to delete them. So to delete them, we need to go and we need to make it so that all of the tables here are writable. Okay, so you have to kind of explicitly say that. It's good to make this explicit so that you don't have major mistakes. Okay, so now we are allowing ourselves to, like, now just to make it clear here, once the thing comes up again, what we're getting rid of here is we're getting rid of like the dangling references. So these are like investment records into companies that are not American, which we don't want to have around because we've gotten rid of all the non-American companies. So if we just do this, we can delete those. If you want to look at the SQL, sometimes we need to delete because it's, so you have to put in the explicit number here so that, just kind of a check on the delete. Okay, so now those have been deleted. And now we also want the investors, we want to delete the actual investors that are, we want to delete the investors that don't have a record of them investing in any company, because there will be some of those left over now. All right, so without, okay, and it's without investment records. Okay, so what we have here is we have, looks like there's 938 of them. Let's just do a sanity check here and see how many investors are there in total. Okay, there's three. Okay, so it makes sense then. Up arrow, and there we have it. And then let's just delete those. So now, so what we're doing is again, we're kind of doing a little bit of quality. We're kind of working through and kind of like building up a nicer version of the database that's a bit more complete, just for the American analytics software and enterprise companies. Okay, now let's finally just show how we're going to like try to dig into this sample we have here and create a comma separated value export, CSV export. So right here we have the investors and get the names of the investors. So we have quite a few of them. That'll be a lot of investors. So what we want here is maybe, if we look here, we have the relationships. So that's how many relationships the investor was participating in. So let's get the kind of bigger ones. So the names of the ones that have, let's see, let's try 40 instead. So if we try 40, these are the investors, the names of the investors that have had at least 40 relationships with, again, the American software enterprise or analytics companies. Because that's the database context we're setting here. So the companies that the investor, okay, so the company's investors, and let's pick some of them here. So we have, we want to make the name, we want to have the name materialize so we can just use it. We don't have to quote it. It makes it kind of fun, more enjoyable. So now that we've done that, now what we can do is we can actually click on them, and since it's materialized the names of the investors, then we can actually just use them as plain text inside the questions. Otherwise, we have to quote them inside the questions. It's kind of part of the situation. I mean, when the database gets small enough, you just materialize everything. So actually, this database is getting to a point where we could probably just materialize everything as just one, big global parameter. But let's just continue here with this. So we have, all right, so those are the investors. And then let's see what happens here. Okay, so this doesn't work, and let's think about why it doesn't work. We have companies, investors, invested in companies. Okay, and then we're just, what we need to have is we need to have the values. Those values should stand for investor. So we have to kind of put it in a little bit more like, so this is, C-phrase we want to use ellipsis. We want to be able to get rid of that investors. So what we want to do is we want to say that the actual names here, give it another property here, and this property, and this is all in the documentation, this property basically says that the value can stand for a table. So that when you don't have to say investor SL or whatever, you can actually, or investor Kleiner Perkins, you can just say Kleiner Perkins. Okay, so the value is actually standing for the full table. Okay, it's standing for a full record. And then if we have that, then we actually don't need, we can make it more elliptical. We don't need to have this investors here. So we can just have, we can just say it this way, the way we wanted it. So okay, so then it finally works. Okay, so these are the companies that have gotten that investment of that type. And maybe now we would want to take this list here and do an export of this into comma separated values so some other tool could use it. So the way we achieve that is very simple. All we do is we click on the button over here, up here, one sec. The button there, yeah, that does the CSV export. Okay, and then it's just like actually just dumps it out to CSV. So this can then be, move along your chain. Okay, conclusions. First, thanks for hanging with this video. I know it was long, but again, it shows you kind of how we go about doing things. So we showed how to define a pull corpus that basically determines what data you'll download from the big database into your private database subset. We then showed how you use a simple natural language to refine and annotate your private database. And then we encourage you to launch a small, so you only need a small AWS C-phrase instance to explore this capability over your own databases. Okay? Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.